Okay. In this video, we're going to introduce the increment and decrement operators. They're very simple operators and they don't have to be used. You don't have to use them. They're optional, but I find them, and a lot of other people find them, very useful, and it's kind of an interesting shortcut. And most people use them anyway, so like it's good to know them. So let's say that I had an integer variable, and I say int people at party. I guess I should say int num people at party. And in programming, we use for number, we typically abbreviate it with num. It's just something that we often do. So just get used to that. So num people at party. Something else that we do is we capitalize the first letter of each word, besides the first one. I don't know if we've covered that in a separate video, but that's just something we do. Anyway, if this starts at 0, so there's no one at your party, you're all alone, unfortunately, that's fine. We can use the increment operator to help us. Let's say that someone comes in through the door. So there's one person at your party. Unfortunately, it's only your brother. So you want to add 1 to num people of party because even though it's your brother, he's still a person. So there is one person at the party other than you. So you have to add 1 to num people of party. What you can do without the increment operator is just set this equal to num people at party. I'm not going to write the whole thing because it takes a long time. I'm just going to say num, and then you can do plus 1. That's something that you can do. That's completely valid. It doesn't make sense at first. It's kind of weird. It's like num people at party is 0, and then you add 1 to it, and you set that equal to 0. 0 is not equal to 1. That's weird. That's just math. Don't think about it like that. This is not the equal sign. Remember, that's not the equal sign. That is the assignment operator. So whatever happens here is assigned to this variable. It's not an equal sign. So just keep that in mind. It's not the equal sign. All right. With that being said, let's say that another person comes in and num people at party now has to go up again. It has to go up by 1. This time it isn't your brother. So you're excited. What you can do is you can, instead of setting this equal to num plus equals to num plus 1, you can just num people at party plus 1. You can just use the increment operator, and all you need to do is just add have 2 plus signs after the variable. So it's just do num people at party plus plus. This is the same thing as this. It's going to do the same thing. It's just a kind of a nice abbreviation. And you know, it's not necessary, as I said before, but it's something that's good. So it's a good thing to know. Now, let's say that your brother, you ask your brother to leave because, you know, you don't want your brother there, which is understandable. And so what you can do is you can use a decrement operator. A decrement operator is the same. It's very similar to increment operator, except you're subtracting 1. So this is adds 1, and that's increment. And then if you want if your brother's leaving, you can use a decrement operator. So num people at party. What you could have done is, first of all, let's not use the decrement operator. Let's just use regular way of doing stuff. Num ... So that's num people at party, and then -1. This is good. You can do this. Your brother left. But let's say that, you know, even the person who came earlier leaves the party because you're a boring person. So num people, I don't mean that personally, at party, you can just use the decrement operator. And instead of writing all of this, it's just going to become minus minus. Just like we had plus plus, it's just minus minus. How much it's so much easier to write this out than all of this. As you go on in your programming careers, you'll see that you use this over this any day. So this is subtracts 1. And that's called decrement. And I don't mean this as a minus sign, a plus sign, whatever. I'm just going to write a colon here. So this is increment, this is decrement. So now, unfortunately, you're the only one at your party, just like you started. So, well, that's life. Let's go on to the IDE.
All right, so to summarize, the increment operator is basically adding 1 to a variable. Decrement operator is basically subtracting 1 from a variable. And the example I'm going to bring up is pretty interesting. So the first thing we're going to do is, first we're going to create an int variable of watch time CS50. So int watch time CS50. And we're going to initialize it at 0. So first we're going to start by describing the increment operator. So if watch time is 0, and then we're going to create a Boolean variable. So we're going to say Boolean eating potato chips is true. Eating potato chips equals true. And now we're going to make use of conditions. So if eating potato chips is equal to true, then you increment watch time CS50 by 1. So Boolean eating is true. So if eating potato chips is equal to true, well, that's true. So we're going to increment watch time CS50 by 1. So for this, like when you're trying to check if a Boolean variable is true in the conditional, then you don't need to say eating potato chips equals true. We could simply just go on to eating potato chips. And if that's true, then it's going to run that condition. So watch time, if eating potato chips, well, we could just say eating potato chips. And if that's true, then we're going to increment watch time CS50 by 1. So watch time CS50 is equal to watch time CS50 plus 1. Now recall what this is. It's an assignment operator. So whatever is to the right of this equation sign is going to be assigned to the variable watch time CS50. So initially we have 0. So basically we're incrementing by 1. Watch time CS50 is now basically 1. And another way we can actually say this is we can say watch time CS50 plus plus, but let's now do both of those. So if we eat 1 potato chip, well, or if eating potato chips is true, then we can increment by 2 in this case. So let's add both of those. So watch time CS50 plus plus. So each time we're eating potato chips is true, we're going to increment by 2 in this case, since we first incremented with the first way. And we're also doing plus plus, which is the other way you can increment. And therefore, the watch time CS50 is now going to be 2. So now to test this, we're going to print out the result. So outside the if condition, now let's print out watch time CS50. So print system out, print ln watch time CS50. All right, so now let's run our program. All right, so now we see the output of 2. Well, to quickly go over this, watch time is CS50 is at 0. Eating potato chips is true, so it's going to run that condition. So first is incrementing by 1. So watch time CS50 is going to be incremented by 1, which means it's going to be 1. But we also have a watch time CS50 plus plus, which is also going to increment that by 1. So watch time equals watch time CS50 plus 1. 0 becomes 1. Watch time CS50 plus plus. That 1 becomes 2 in that case, and therefore the value of 2 is stored in the variable watch time CS50, and that's why we get the result of that. But if we switch to Boolean eating potato chips is equal to false, then now if you run our program, recall if a condition is false, it's not gonna run whatever is inside that condition. So now let's run it, and it should output 0 in that case. The reason for that is the condition is false, so it's not going to be running whatever's in that condition. So now to make it quick, let's now talk about the decrement operator. So now in this case, let's switch watch time CS50 to 60. Now that might not be a lot of time, or that might not be a lot of time to learn a lot of the programming concepts, but to make more sense of it, let's now switch it to 60. All right, so now it's the way the increment operator works, similar to decrement operator, but instead we're replacing the plus signs with minus. So we're doing watch time CS50 is watch time CS50 minus 1, which essentially means you're decrementing the variable by 1. And instead of plus plus in that second line, let's switch it to minus minus. And now let's switch in the comments increment operator to decrement operator. All right, so now let's run our program, and we should hopefully get the output of 58, since 60 is decrementing 2 times. All right, so now we see the output of 58. Now that basically It works the same way as increment, except it keeps subtracting from it. So 60 becomes 59 through wash times CS50 minus 1. And then the minus basically decrements 59 to 58 basically. And that's why the value of 58 is stored in the variable wash times CS50. And that's basically how increment and decrement operators work. Thank you.